Welcome back to Jamyy English. I'm Jayz.
And I'm Amy. All week we have been telling our stories. Today we get to the part that makes people genuinely interesting.
What you love.
Your passions, your obsessions, the things you would do even if nobody paid you and nobody watched.
Talking about what you love in English is one of the most energizing conversations you can have.
And one of the most revealing.
When someone's eyes light up, talking about something they care about, that is, when you actually meet them.
Today we give you the language to talk about your passions with confidence, specificity, and that quality of genuine enthusiasm that draws people in.
Let's start with the basics. What is the difference between a hobby and a passion?
A hobby is something you do. A passion is something you are.
I play guitar as a hobby. I am a musician even if nobody hears it is a passion.
A hobby is something you fit into your schedule. A passion is something you build your schedule around.
That distinction is useful for conversation. When you describe a passion, you convey a different level of investment.
Let's talk about our own passions. Jayz, you go first.
The ocean. I have been in or on the ocean since I was 4 years old. I surf, I free dive, I fish. I just sit and look at it when nothing else works. The ocean is where I think clearly. It is the one environment where I feel completely myself.
What specifically about the ocean?
The way it forces presence, you cannot be distracted in the water. Your mind has to be exactly where your body is, or things go wrong very quickly. That combination of physical demand and mental clarity is addictive.
That is beautiful and very specific.
Now yours.
Design, and more broadly, visual storytelling. I am fascinated by how images and visual choices communicate things that words cannot or do not.
Give me an example.
The way a particular color temperature in a photograph changes the emotional feeling of the image without you being aware of why. The way the spacing between letters on a page affects whether text feels welcoming or cold.
But you do.
I cannot not notice them, which is both a gift and occasionally an inconvenience when I cannot stop analyzing a restaurant menu.
That specific detail about the restaurant menu is perfect. It says something true about living with a passion for design.
Passions have side effects, and the side effects are often funny.
Let's look at the language we used. I said, the ocean is where I think clearly and where I feel completely myself. Amy said she cannot not notice visual details.
Those phrases communicate the level of connection to the thing. It is not casual, it is integral.
Useful phrases for talking about a deep passion. It is where I feel most myself. I have been doing it since I can remember. I cannot imagine my life without it. It is the thing I return to when everything else is difficult. I find it hard to explain why it matters so much, but it does.
That last one is important. Not every passion is easy to articulate, and saying, I find it hard to explain, is honest and actually invites curiosity rather than closing the conversation.
Now, let's talk about how to describe a passion to someone who knows nothing about it, because that is the real challenge.
If someone asks me about typography, which is one of my specific interests, and they have no background in design, I have to think carefully about how to explain it without losing them.
How do you do it?
I usually start with the effect, not the thing itself. Have you ever looked at two signs with the same words and felt that one was trustworthy and one was not, without knowing why? That is typography at work. The choice of letter form carries meaning beyond the words.
That approach works because you start from an experience the person has already had.
You meet them where they are, not where you are.
Useful structures for explaining a niche, interest. It is basically the study of blank. The simplest way to describe it is blank. You know how blank. It is like that but applied to blank. Most people do not think about it consciously, but blank is happening everywhere around us.
That last one is particularly good for invisible passions, the things that structure experience without people noticing them.
Surfing is something I get asked to explain often to people who have never tried it.
How do you describe it?
I usually say it is the closest thing I know to being in conversation with something larger than yourself. The ocean has its own rhythm and logic, and your job is to read it accurately and respond in the right moment. If you try to force it or override it, you fail.
That description makes me want to try it.
Which is the goal.
Now let's talk about how passions connect people across difference.
A shared passion is one of the fastest routes to genuine friendship.
And even a different passion, described with real enthusiasm, creates connection.
Because enthusiasm is contagious. When someone talks about something they genuinely love, you feel it even if you know nothing about the subject.
There's a word in English for this, infectious. Her enthusiasm for pottery was completely infectious. You caught the feeling even if you had no interest in clay.
Useful phrases for reacting to someone else's passion. I know nothing about blank, but the way you talk about it makes me want to learn. Tell me more. I am genuinely curious. What got you into it originally? What would a complete beginner need to know to start appreciating it?
Those questions show respect for the person and their interest, and they keep the conversation going.
Now let's talk about newer passions, things you discovered as an adult that surprised you.
Many people assume their passions are fixed from childhood, but adults discover new ones all the time.
I got deeply interested in marine biology in my 30s. I was always around the ocean, but at some point I started actually reading about the ecosystems, the species, the scientific research. It is not a hobby. I do not do marine biology, but it is a genuine intellectual passion.
I became interested in architecture in my late 20s, not designing buildings, understanding them, reading about how buildings shape the experience of the people inside them, and how cities change when their architecture changes.
Both of those are intellectual passions rather than active ones, and those are equally valid.
Useful phrases for talking about newer passions. It is something I came to later in life and I wish I had found it sooner. I got into it almost by accident and now I cannot stop. It started as curiosity and became something more serious. I do not practice it professionally, but I read and think about it constantly.
Now, let's talk about the relationship between passion and identity, because some passions define us.
When Amy says she is a designer, she means more than her job title. She means something about how she sees the world.
When I say I am a surfer, I mean more than that I surf. I mean I am someone who has organized significant portions of my life around access to the ocean.
That level of identity, level passion, is interesting to talk about because it explains choices. Why you live where you live, why you spend money the way you do, why certain things matter to you that do not matter to most people.
Useful phrases for identity level passion. It is not just something I do. It is part of how I see the world. A lot of my major life decisions have been shaped by blank. I would describe it as core to who I am. It is the lens through which I understand most things.
Now, let's talk about how to talk about passions you have left behind, things you were once devoted to and moved away from.
Because that is also a real part of most people's stories.
I was deeply committed to competitive swimming from age 8 to about 17. It was a huge part of my identity, and then it was not.
What happened?
I outgrew it. The thing I loved about it was the discipline and the measurable improvement. By 17, the improvements were smaller and slower, and the discipline felt like constraint rather than structure. I needed to give my attention to something else.
Useful phrases for passions you have moved past. I was really dedicated to blank for many years. I stepped away from it when blank. I still carry a lot of what I learned from it. It was the right thing at that stage of my life. I think about returning to it sometimes.
Those phrases are honest and they honor the former passion without pretending. It still defines you.
Let's close with a practice exercise. I want you to think of one thing you are genuinely passionate about. It can be anything, a sport, a creative practice, an intellectual interest.
Now describe it in 3 parts. First, what is it? Second, what does it feel like from the inside? Third, how does it connect to who you are?
That structure will give you a complete, interesting answer to, so what are you passionate about in English?
Vocabulary review for talking about passions. It is where I feel most myself. I cannot imagine my life without it. I return to it when everything else is difficult. It is not just something I do.
For explaining a passion to others, meet them where they are. Start with the effect, not the thing. The simplest way to describe it is, you know how blank, it is like that, but applied to blank.
For connecting over passions, infectious. Your enthusiasm makes me want to learn. What got you into it? What would a complete beginner need to know?
For identity, level, passion, core, to who I am, the lens through which I understand things, many of my major decisions have been shaped by, part of how I see the world.
And for passions you have moved on from. I was really dedicated. I stepped away when I still carry what I learned. It was the right thing for that stage of my life.
What you love says more about you than almost anything else. Share it in English with the specificity and enthusiasm it deserves.
That is how real connection happens.
Thank you for being with us all week. We will be back tomorrow with a new episode.
Keep telling your story.
Let's also talk about how to discuss passions in professional settings, because enthusiasm is not always welcome in every environment.
True, there is a difference between sharing what you love in a casual conversation over dinner and doing the same in a formal professional meeting.
The principle is the same, but the degree changes.
In a casual conversation, you can let enthusiasm run. In a professional context, you might frame a passion in terms of what it has taught you or how it connects to your work.
Surfing has given me a high tolerance for uncertainty and a respect for things that are not entirely in my control. I think that actually transfers into teaching. That connects a personal passion to a professional quality.
Working on personal design projects outside of client work keeps me creatively fresh. It gives me a place to take risks I cannot always take in commercial work. That is, passion framed as professional asset.
Useful phrases for this professional framing. It has taught me blank, which I think is transferable. It keeps me blank in a way that benefits my work. There are real parallels between blank and what I do professionally. The skills I have developed through blank show up in surprising ways in my job.
Now let's talk about how to respond when someone shares a passion you do not relate to at all.
Because this happens all the time. Someone is deeply excited about something you find genuinely uninteresting.
The goal is not to pretend enthusiasm you do not feel. The goal is to be genuinely curious about the person, even if the subject does not move you.
I have never gotten into blank, but the way you talk about it, I wonder if I have been missing something. What would you say is the best entry point for a complete beginner?
That response shows respect, admits your own limitation, and invites them to continue. It is generous conversation.
Another option, I do not know much about blank, but I am curious what draws you to it. What is the appeal for you specifically?
That question minute from the subject to the person, and the person is always more interesting than the subject.
Useful phrases for receiving someone else's passion. I cannot say I know much about blank, but your enthusiasm is contagious. What is it about blank that first got your attention? I have always been curious about blank, but never knew where to start. Tell me what a person who loves it loves about it.
That last one is a beautiful question. Tell me what a person who loves it loves about it.
It invites a very specific and personal answer.
Now, let's talk about the passions that people keep private.
Because not everything you love is something you freely share.
Some passions feel too vulnerable, too niche, too easy to misunderstand.
Someone who writes poetry in private, someone who practices calligraphy for themselves alone, someone who has a deep interest in a topic that does not fit their professional or social image.
These private passions are interesting to think about. They are often where people are most authentically themselves.
In English conversation, there is a wonderful phrase for this. Something I do not usually tell people, but...
That phrase signals trust. It says, I am going to show you something real.
And it almost always deepens the conversation immediately.
Useful phrases for sharing a more private passion. This is something I do not usually bring up, but blank. It might sound strange, but I am genuinely fascinated by blank. I keep this mostly to myself, but I have been doing blank for years. I do not share this widely, but it matters a lot to me.
Sharing something slightly guarded is an act of trust, and it creates trust in return.
That exchange of trust is what turns a pleasant conversation into a real one.
And that is ultimately what all of this language work is about.
Not just understanding English, using it to connect genuinely with other people.
Your passions are your invitation. Share them with the specificity and honesty they deserve.
And when someone shares theirs with you, receive it with a real curiosity.
That is the whole practice.
Thank you for a wonderful week on Jamyy English.
We will see you tomorrow.